Hi there. I'm going to discuss part two of the Jameson Raid, and I'll start with discussing the plan itself and how it was carried out, and then I'll go to discuss the aftermath of the Jameson Raid on both the conspirators, the South African Republic government, and the wider fallout from the Jameson raids on the British, and um, uh, then I'll go on to discuss why the Jameson raid failed, and just give you an analysis of what actually transpired. So the Jameson raid consisted of the force that was led by Leander Star Jameson. It was composed of 120 men from the what was then referred to as the Bechuanaland Police. It was led by Major Raleigh Gray, and it was based at Mafeking. Mafeking, let me see if I can find you Mafeking on the. Yeah, Mafeking, that's this place here where I'm highlighting with my cursor. That's Mafeking, it on the confluence between the Cape Colony here, the Transvaal, and then the Bechuanaland Protectorate, which is now the country of Botswana. And so that was the other part of the force led by Leander Star Jameson, and then the second part was 470 policemen from the British South Africa Company, led by Sir John Willoughby, and they were based at Pitani. Pitani was a small settlement here on right just outside of the Transvaal border, and it was based in it was again in Bechuanaland, what is now the country of Botswana. And then the British South Africa Company consisted of like veterans from the 1893 Anglo-Matabele War, and then some original members of the pioneer column that had invaded Mashonaland, what is now Zimbabwe, and that was in 1890. So the plan itself, I'll go now to the plan itself. The plan was to mobilize the citizens of Johannesburg, and then secretly arm them. So let me see if I can get you an illustration of what the citizens of Johannesburg in the 1890s. So that's those are the citizens of Johannesburg, and then the next step was to an ultimatum consisting of the demands contained in Charles Leonard's manifesto, which was to be sent to President Paul Kruger's government. And then after 3 days, if there was no positive response, the conspirators planned to actually to carry out a raid on the armories at Pretoria, and then abduct President Kruger himself, and then take him to Johannesburg. At that point in time, the conspirators planned to actually install a provisional government, which included composed of prominent members of the Boer community sympathetic to their cause, and that would be still based at Pretoria. If all else failed, Plan B was to call in the High Commissioner, British High Commissioner, to send in British troops. And that was the plan, at least the plan in Johannesburg itself. And say on the 27th of December 1895, a squad of armed Americans were ordered to take positions on Nel Mapia's estate at Irene. Irene was just a settlement outside Pretoria, and then they were to wait a signal to attack and then abduct President Paul Kruger. On the Leander Star Jameson side, who was based at Pitsani outside the Transvaal, The force on 29 December 1895, his force crossed the border into the South African Republic and marched on to Krugersdorp. Let me see if I can find you picture here. That's the illustration of Leander Star Jameson with his force, and they were marching on to Krugersdorp. And then on the 30th of December 1895, the Iron Strike Force had to be evacuated under the cover of darkness, and someone had found out that there was activity at the Neuromapias estate, and then the Boers, the commandos, were about to attack the Americans at Irene Farm. And then when Leander Star Jameson discovered that there were about 800 Boer commandos waiting for him, and in an act of misplaced bravado, Leander Star Jameson stated that the Boers would turn tail at the first beating of the drum, and that with his raw young fellas, he would kick the backsides of the Boers all around the Transvaal. And then alongside that, Leander Star Jameson marched into an ambush at in a small settlement called Donkoop. Yeah, that was the ambush. And then Leander Star Jameson later hoisted the white flag of surrender at about 9:15 on Thursday, 2 January 1896. Let me see if I can find you. Yeah, as no. Find you a picture of the surrender at Donkoop. So that's Major Jameson Willoughby and his force, and so the Leander Jameson is surrendered at Donkoop. That is this small place here on his way to Pretoria. So he's surrendered on the 2nd of January. So that was Boer artillery on there, Brinks Farm on there, and yeah. And then we've got Randfontein on there, and he had gone past all these settlements. And then the consequences of the Jameson raid was that Kaiser Wilhelm, the German Kaiser, sent a telegram to President Paul Kruger on the 3rd of January 1896 congratulating him. Let me see if I can find you a portrait of President Paul, the Kaiser Wilhelm. Yeah, that's the Kaiser Wilhelm, and I sent a message of congratulations to President Paul Kruger, praising him for job well done, and the British interpreted this as an offer of military aid to the Boers. Let me see if I can get you. Yeah, that's yeah, that was the first say what I would say the consequences of the Jameson raid. And then the Jameson raid actually exacerbated the tensions that were already simmering between the South African Republic government and the British. President Paul Kruger began importing large quantities of arms and signed an alliance with the Orange Free State government. And then President Paul Kruger was convinced that the British were going to attack him at any time, because he believed that the Uitlanders at Johannesburg, he was not convinced that they were not going to attack, and so he ended up he went on a buying spree, spent 1 million pounds in 1890s money, and bought 37,000 Moser rifles. And let me see if I can find you a picture of a Moser rifle. That's the 1893 model, the Boer model of the Moser rifle. So that President Kruger bought 30,000 of those, 38 37,000 of those from Germany, which were given to Boer commandos, and he bought 22 pieces of artillery. Let me see if I can find you the version of the artillery we are talking about here. So that's let me see. Yeah, that's that's the version of artillery we are talking about. They sometimes referred as a cannon, and President Paul Kruger bought 22 pieces from Germany and France, and a citizen army of 25,000 men was organized into commando units, and to illustrate the dimensions of rearmament, that was more than what the force was, more than what the British colonies of Natal and Cape Colony combined. The Boer force now actually outnumbered them. And the other consequence was that Cecil John Rhodes he was found to have financed the Jameson Raid, and he was forced to resign as Prime Minister of the Cape Colony, and he had to give up his position in the British South Africa Company, which controlled Rhodesia, which is now the modern-day country of Zimbabwe. So then the consequences on Leander Star Jameson was that the Boers felt that they could not try him in Pretoria. That would have caused them well, a lot of resentment, and they did not feel that he could not carry out the job. So they sent him to England, and then he was tried in London, and then he was sentenced to 15 months imprisonment. And then Kruger's success in defeating Leander Star Jameson and the Raiders, he was now convinced that war with Britain would actually flare up at some point, and he believed that his success consolidated the South African Republic's independence and would serve to preserve the Boer way of life. And one of the consequences of his rearmament was that the war with Britain became inevitable, and the Anglo-Boer War of 1899 was a result of the simmering tensions between the Uitlanders and the Boers, who were based at whose capital was at Pretoria. So that was the aftermath of the Jameson Raid. And then now I'm going to the part where I'm discussing the why the Jameson Raid failed, and so the Jameson Raid actually failed because the
Jameson Raid brought to a head the simmering tensions between the two.
The Jameson Raid actually failed
South Africa, the British
because
and the Boers. The Boers were descended from
the logistical problems between. There were logistical problems, and the rifles that were supposed to arm the Uitlanders, the insurrectionists, they were imported from Britain and via Cape Town, and they were shipped late for the raid. And the alternative was to get weapons from the raid at the state armories at Pretoria. And then the problems themselves, the problems with shipping arms and ammunition, and the agent, the insurrectionists' agent was Gardner Williams, who was stationed at Kimberley. And the plan was to actually use 5,000 rifles, but of the 5,000, he only managed to send 500 to the insurrectionists at Johannesburg. And then the other reason why the Jameson Raid failed was that it failed because simply because the mining magnates, the mining magnates, there was mistrust between the principal organizers of the insurrection in Johannesburg. So they were the men who were aligned to Rhodes did not trust the men who were aligned to the Alfred Bytes as mining company, and John Hammond Hayes, one of the conspirators, actually divulged that the American component of the plot told other non-British immigrants that the whole affair was nothing but an English plot to induce us to spend money and to shed our blood in order that the country should be brought under the British flag. The Americans wanted President Kruger to reform working conditions in the mines, and they wanted to reform working conditions in the mines, and he was not. They were not concerned with actually the imperial designs of the Rhodes and Leander Star Jameson. And then there was a dispute on which flag to raise, and the Americans they were Republican in outlook, and they wanted to raise the stars and stripes. You know, that is if they were the rebellion had succeeded, so that was the plan. And then of course there were three flags: the Stars and Stripes, the Union Jack, and the South African Republic, Fier Clair, and that was the other plan. And then among the insurrectionists themselves, they were the plan was leaked to President Kruger, and a man named J.J. Taylor with about 80 men sent messages of support to President Kruger in Pretoria by mid-December. So the plan itself was it was not a secret. Everyone knew that there was something afoot, at least from President Kruger's side. Yeah, so that was one of the reasons why the Jameson Raid failed. And then the South African Republic itself had newly established a secret service, and it caught wind of the impending plan, and they had knowledge of what the mines were being used to store arms and food, and yeah. So, and then the other issue was that on 22 December 1895, a Scottish trade unionist wrote to Commander General Joubert and warned him in a letter that the English component of the Johannesburg residents planned an uprising on the 31st of December 1895, and that the Leander Star Jameson had armed men on the South African Republic border waiting to invade. So the whole idea that the Leander Star Jameson was going to invade and was waiting, it was now an open secret. And then there were also problems of timing and lack of what the military men referred as lack of surprise. The plot for was set to invade the South African Republic, or Transvaal, was set for the 26th of December, which was an inexplicable choice to start a revolution, because for a start the miners were busy with Christmas celebrations, and they were drinking, they were imbibing in alcohol, and then the planned insurrection itself had become public knowledge to the extent that the journalists came from afar as field as London to witness the expected uprising. So when actually the Uitlanders on the Witwatersrand, when they decided actually to act, it was well known that something was coming, and then the uprising itself was first planned for the 14th of December, and then it was shifted to the 26th of December, and then postponed again to the 6th of January. So at least there were no definite plans on what to do, and it was disorganization and a lack of planning, and then they were class what I would refer to as class dynamics, and they were the British component of the immigrant population. They were Cornish miners who were upset at being forced into participating in what they perceived as an upper class mine owners an imperialist plot, and they started leaving Johannesburg for the coast of Natal. So the uprising at least lost its working class backbone, because the miners who were supposed to actually to participate in the uprising, they were leaving Johannesburg for the coast. And then the Johannesburg raid, the Jameson raid itself, was a scheme concocted by a naive elite who had little knowledge of the terrain, and it was carried out it was basically inept. The men who composed the Leander Star Jameson's force, they were referred to as a ragtag army of basically people who had no military background, and they were mostly adventure seekers. And then the Reform Committee itself was elitist, and it was composed of professionals with a university education. Absent were small-scale traders, shopkeepers, cab owners, canteen keepers, and publicans. And basically, it was the upper class, the mining magnates, and engineers, lawyers, and doctors. We were actually planning things, and they had not figured out that without the ordinary men and women of the Uitlanders, the uprising itself would not succeed. So absent were the builders, boilermakers, carpenters, electricians, and so forth. And so that was how the Jameson Raid failed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to at least I've laid out the background to the Jameson Raid, and the Jameson Raid was a catalyst to the 1899 to 1902 Anglo-Boer War. So what I'll do is, in the next episode, I'll present an episode on the Anglo-Boer War. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to my channel, and yeah, thank you so much. Bye.